Okay, so now tell us a little bit briefly about your music education. You have different but somewhat parallel musical backgrounds. Stuart, why don't you start? How did you develop your musical skills?
Oh, because I'm really quiet, and I could go to parties and play guitars and that kind of stuff, and
Not have to talk.
not have to talk to anybody.
But still get the girl.
Apparently. But so I was 10 when I started playing guitar, and then I had a friend in the 8th grade who was starting to take guitar lessons, and I wasn't about to let him get better than me, and so I started taking lessons and started taking it more seriously. And
Played in bands with your dad, too.
I did. I played in the country band with my dad when I was in high school, and then started writing songs then, and doing more solo stuff in college and that type of thing, where eventually I moved to Nashville for about 7 years and did my time there, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And I loved it, but it was time to go, I guess. And
Came back to Texas.
came back to Texas.
I appreciate that, because I wouldn't have ever met you.
And then with Hilary, I was working on my second project, my second CD, and needed a harmony singer, and met her, and she stuck.
So, and your musical background, you have a formal education.
Well, shh, don't tell anyone.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. I grew up singing in a Methodist church, and always wanted to do music. My mom, I just was looking through a baby book, and before I was even talking, I was making up songs. She had written that in my baby book. I was just looking for pictures for her celebration of life, and my parents wouldn't let us have MTV because they were frightened I'd become a musician. It didn't work. Here I am. But my grandma Nisi was a jazz player. So I'd practice piano in Texas, and then we'd drive 2 straight hours up I-35 to Minneapolis, Minnesota. And the first thing she'd do is sit me down at her piano. And she was a nurse anesthetist by day, piano player by night, jazz player. And she said, "Hilary, why don't you play a song for me?" And then she whispered in my ear, "I hate children who don't practice." So needless to say, I would attempt it, and she'd scoot me right over and say, "Why don't you just sing along?" And then she'd play these beautiful jazz tunes. So that's kind of where I think my roots are with music. When I turned 18, my dad looked me in the eye and he said, "Hilary, you got to get yourself an education." I said, "Well, if I'm going to have to read that much, Dad, I'm going to study music." He looked at me and then laughed for a long time, and then a little bit longer. Gave me a few other suggestions, and when he realized I was serious, he says, "How about music education? Because then you got a real skill." So I said, "All right, Dad," the rebellious daughter I am. I said, "If I'm going to have to read that much and study music education, I'm going to go off to the mountains. I'm going to go to the mountains. I'm going to explore. I'm going to find myself." He looked me right in the eye and he said, "How about Lubbock, Texas?" So now I'm a proud Red Raider. I have a BM, Bachelor of Music, with a teaching certificate, and got the opportunity to actually study all kinds of types of music, and much to my voice teacher's chagrin, was a backup singer for blues and country bands, and sang a little bit of jazz too, because she was more of a classical lady. So I went on to do that, and then after that was just a studio singer, actually. I sang harmony with bands and was a studio singer, and then wrote songs and sang to my dog until I went to Kerrville. And that's when this whole thing happened.
It just exploded.
15 years later, we've toured the world with our music. So you just never know what's going to happen in life, man.
Right here in Kerrville.
I know.
Well, both of you write the songs that the two of you perform and record, and both of you have written songs about the road that you've taken to get where you are today. So, Hilary, would you pull out of your pocket one of your songs that's a little bit about that journey?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I got a song inspired by my first solo drive to Lubbock, Texas. I was driving in my 1982 Subaru station wagon that was supposed to be maroon, but by the time I got it, it was a pale pink. It had 4 rockin' cylinders in it. And I was doing my solo drive. I had arrived. I was no longer a hill country girl. I was a West Texas girl because I saw my first tumbleweed. It was flying across the horizon, and I was like, yeah. And it was huge. It was like the size of a Volkswagen. And then the wind shifted, and it started blowing right towards me. That's when I heard my dad's voice in my head say, whatever you do, don't swerve. Just hit the pedal to the metal and go. So, needless to say, I survived, and here's a song that came out of it off the latest album called Little Miss Tumbleweed. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. She's got a runaway heart, nothing to lose. Black Tom's calling her traveling shoes. Daddy's out catting, mama's home drinking. No sense crying, way past thinking. Windows down, gaining speed. All she knows is her heart needs an overload to set her free. Rolling on the breeze, little Miss Tumbleweed. She's leaving her boyfriend back in town, who's begging that girl to settle down. She can't cotton to barbed wire fences. She ain't coming to her senses. Windows down, gaining speed. All she knows is her heart needs an overload